Aditi, everything is ready there. We can start.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, you can start now.
Very good afternoon, dear delegates. And before starting afternoon session, I would like to wish you all happy Men's Day. And today, speakers will be Dr. K. Uma ma'am and Dr. G. Shamala ma'am. First, I would like to introduce you Dr. K. Uma ma'am for afternoon first session. Dr. K. Uma ma'am has done a graduation in Madras Medical College, Chennai, post-graduation in pharmaceutical chemistry in Sri Ramachandra Institute of Paramedical Science, Coimbatore, and doctoral program from Annamalai University. She has been working in PSC College of Pharmacy for about 20 years. She has received grants from CSIR, DRDO, and DST for organizing conferences and symposiums in her institution. She has presented research in poster and oral sessions in conferences and twice received Best Paper Awards. She has been as an evaluator and resource person in national conferences. Dr. K. Uma has 17 research publications to her credit. She is a member of APTI, IPGA, and IPA. Let us greet Dr. K. Uma, who will begin today's afternoon session with data integrity, plagiarism, and copy reports. Over to you, ma'am.
A very good afternoon and a happy Women's Day. I first of all would like to thank our Honorable Principal, Dr. M. Ramanathan, for having given me this wonderful opportunity to be a part of the refresher course on research and project writing, bioethics and scientific communications. Thank you, sir. And today I would like to give an overview on plagiarism and copyright. First of all, let me start with the topic of plagiarism, and I would like to discuss the following points under this particular topic. Definition, the forms of plagiarism, and then types, reasons, action to reduce plagiarism, and steps to avoid, checking tools and resources that are necessary to find out plagiarism, and then the consequences behind, and what are the incidents that have happened due to this. So these are the points which will be discussed under this particular topic. Going for the definition of this, it's an act of stealing someone else's effort without giving credit to the novel creator. It may be deliberate sometimes, that is, or unintended also, but still both would fetch the same bad name. So whether you do it intentionally or unintentionally. And again, in another words to say, it's a false claim of authorship and you're violating the academic integrity. That is, especially in the field of academics and research, all the members should have or act with respect, responsibility, trust, and honesty. If that is not there, then there will be violation of academic integrity. And due to when it happens is that if there is representation of another author's thoughts, ideas, concepts, or structures as one's own original work, then only the breach of journalistic ethics happens, breaches the violation. It will be the ethics are violated, and this accounts to academic dishonesty. So these are all interrelated, happening due to plagiarism. Now, I would like to also say about one thing called self-plagiarism. That is, if we are going to reuse, like here you can see a thing like a teacher would have asked a project, and based due to no time or no ideas to think, he is thinking what he has done in the last year to just reuse it. So that's what reusing anything, even if it's a published paper by us, reusing the significant identical portions of our own work without citing our work. So that's called as, again, it's duplicating our work or making multiple publications with the same work. It should be different. Each work, the ideas should be different. But if we are using this, reusing the same significant portions of our work, that is actually called as recycling fraud or self-plagiarism. Now, I'll just go in for different forms of plagiarism. If we are going to produce our others' work as our own, that is the worst part of it. Others' work we are producing, and otherwise rewrite somebody else's work without giving credit to them. That is, without giving any citation, we're just rewriting their work. And the third one is we are combining many sources, taking data from many sources and put them together and make it into an article, and then publish it without citing. And next is cite some. We have collected all the data, but very few I have cited, and many things I have not cited. That also is a form of plagiarism. And fifth one here is we are combining everything, both cited and uncited, but we are giving a citation and giving some other person's work under the same citation. So that's another form of plagiarism. The next one is inaccurately citing a source. So exactly we need to cite. So, and then next is cited, but fail to change the wordings of the borrowed ideas. The ideas that you have taken from a different place have to be changed. The little wordings, everything have to be changed and written and again cited. Even if you have changed, you need to cite it. And eighth one is take passages from our own previous work, but you just republish it without adding a citation. That's also plagiarism. That's what we called it as self-plagiarism. And then last one is depend totally on others' work and don't bring in your original ideas or text or nothing. You fail to bring in anything and you just depend totally on others' work. And so this is how the plagiarism occurs. These are the different types how one can plagiarize. Now I'm just going to very few types, only two types, the major types of plagiarism. I mean, one is blatant and another one is inadvertent. See, blatant means you're directly, deliberately trying to deceive others. Just you copy and paste. And also you do that with your own knowledge. It's not unintentionally. Intentionally you're doing that. You're copying and pasting, but you're not at all giving any credit. You're not giving a citation for that particular topic. So that's called as a blatant way of doing things. It is just as written here, downloading an article, essay or poem from the web as it is and presenting it as our own. And the next one is inadvertent. Under advertent, that means it is unintentional or accidental way of doing the plagiarism. You're taking from many sources, and you make something which closely resembles all the original sources. You're unintentionally it is done without giving a proper credit to somebody else's research or work. So, but whether it is intentional or unintentional, plagiarism is not acceptable. So this is a fact. Now, what are the reasons for plagiarism? First of all, let us see. It's first and foremost is academic procrastination. That means being very lazy, delaying the things, postponing the things, and you build a submission deadline, but you always cross that and go. So you don't have to, you are not unable to do before the line of submission, before a deadline. So it's all because of the laziness or whatever be the reason, keep postponing. That's called academic procrastination. It's the major cause. So finally, we end up in taking somebody else's article and finishing the work to finish it on time. So that's the worst type of procrastination. And then next is coping up with the heavy load imposed by the teachers. And finally, due to the heavy load, we try to cook up things and do in the end. So that also there, the plagiarism may crop in now. And next is, if a writer has very poor time management and writing skills, then in that case, they try to take up somebody else's work and do it. And then lack of self-confidence. You will have ideas, but you will not have the confidence to bring forth those ideas into a paper. Then next is, if students have a dream, some students, they will have a dream to prove that they are the best in front of the teacher. So they would like to cook up something and just prove themselves as a better performer. So in that case, there are all chances of plagiarism. And if there is no plagiarism checkers, now checkers are available, but if there is no checker properly, we have not checked, in that case also it happens. Now, what are the actions that can be done to reduce the plagiarism? Now, the teaching activities should be coordinated time to time to reduce the load so that students do not do the plagiarism. And then the memorization should be decreased and practical sessions should be increased. That's also a motivating way. And the most important one is you promote positive reinforcement, in the sense always you can just clap or praise the students, or offering gifts, or patting at the back, or showing some gifts or rewards time to time, like you can see the picture. So it's all these things, they promote a positive reinforcement or a positive behavior to uplift your confidence level, and that helps in reducing the plagiarism. So these are the various actions that can reduce. Next, what are the steps to totally avoid plagiarism? So plagiarism can be avoided by using our own ideas, even if it gets a little late, using our own ideas and opinions, and using quotation marks whenever we are using a direct quote. And these quotation marks are used for any statement that is presented word for word as printed in another source. If we are using word for word, definitely we need to use a quotation. And next one is paraphrase others' ideas in your own words, but be sure to cite it. In the sense, you should use different words of clarity. That is, you formulate a sentence, somebody else's ideas and are there, but you can formulate a sentence in your own words along with citing that particular source. So that's very important. And then cite your source. Of course, all of you know what is a citation. Whenever we take information from a source, whether that source is published, presented, or in online, we have to provide complete information about the source, that is author, the title, the nature of publication, name of the publication, the date, the year, everything. So that's what is the citation it means. So that's very important whenever we take information from a source. And then avoid same words wherever possible in your notes. So these are the steps to avoid plagiarism. Then avoid structuring. Then further steps, other steps are avoiding structuring the notes. That is art of organizing the notes. Avoid that, and in the same sequential manner as how you see in the original source. And then you try to break the sentence sequences as much as possible without making it into a big sentence of 3-4 lines. Let's break and use sentences as much as possible. Or sometimes we can group the related material together in our notes. And even if it is scattered here and there in the original, what is relevant and what can be grouped, we can group them together. So these are the various steps to avoid plagiarism. Now, let me talk about the plagiarism checking tools. There are tools available, which is the most important, because once we are writing anything, let's check for ourselves. That's wiser enough. Now, in plagiarism checking tools, first one, Grammarly. Some of the tools I'll discuss. Grammarly's plagiarism checker is available. This has been designed to compare our text to over 16 billion web pages and academic papers that are stored in ProQuest databases. And of course, you all know what are the web pages. See, the pages are collected and they become the websites like wikipedia.org, amazon.com, and then google.com, everything that's a website. It's made up of all the web pages. So like that 16 billion web pages, it can compare. And then next is ProQuest database. See, this is one of the world's best user-friendly database. That is a library across the globe, and this works with thousands of publishers, and through a single point of access. So through a single point access, it has coordination with more than thousands of publishers, and so this Grammarly plagiarism checker can easily find out all these things. So it's very easy to compare our text. And how it works is that when it matches our text with anything online, immediately it gives a plagiarism alert, and we have to be alert as soon as we see the red mark. And next is, if we have any grammatical or writing issues in our document, that is also focused. It also gives us an idea, and it shows us that these are the grammatical errors, so that we can correct them time to time. So that likewise, it is helping us in all these. And next is a free plagiarism checker. It checks if our text has any duplicate contents. Sometimes unknowingly we may do some mistakes. So all that is being checked by the free plagiarism checker. And next is the premium plagiarism checker. It highlights the passages that need citation. Sometimes we would have left certain passages. Definitely it will not allow us to leave as such. It will highlight and show that these have to be cited. And then next, it provides information on the source also. So even if we have forgotten from which source we have taken, it will give us the information about the source. And it offers advanced writing feedback and corrections. So it will be very helpful for if we have a little poor writing skills also. This, in addition, it helps us to improve our writing skills time to time. And when we talk about the resources, so far we have talked about the checking tools. So by using all these tools, we can check whether we have plagiarized. And the resources of how to recognize and how to avoid plagiarism are affiliated university, Tamil Nadu Dr. M.G.R. Medical University. They have given plagiarism guidelines, and 2 websites are available. The following websites I've given here. And also plagiarism.org. There is the organization which helps the academic community in checking the plagiarism. There's SFU, that's called as Simon Fraser University. It's where you have web-based tutorials are available to facilitate small group discussions. Are very much available. They are all available online, and they have a lot of tutorials about plagiarism. And even in Princeton University, which seeks to achieve the highest level of distinction in the discovery and transmission of knowledge and understanding, there they provide a link to recognize and avoid plagiarism, and all the details are given in that also. And you have a Chronicle of Higher Education. It's just a weekly daily, and this started in Washington in 1966 itself. This has an article called as "Everybody is Talking About Plagiarism." So in that, it's an independent weekly newspaper, and it's devoted to national issues pertaining to higher education. And this has an article where it's very clearly given about plagiarism. Likewise, you have many sources, and we can use our M.G.R. Medical University website very well, which gives all the necessary guidelines to avoid the plagiarism and to help to find out and recognize and just avoid that. Now, let me just say some incidences which have it will be an awareness to everyone now. So due to the consequences of in scientific writing, see, money-related consequences, lawful effects, disappointment, and then reputation problems, all these crop in due to these consequences in plagiarism. So what are they? No, just to mention a few, the penalty is sometimes you will be suspended from or expelled from college, work, or university. Substantial fines will be levied, and then legal issues and even imprisonment can be imposed. And then there will be some reputation problems and social media sensation also. So these are the consequences. And just to name a few, I will explain certain one or two incidences so that we all get aware of the consequences of plagiarism and be very wise enough and shrewd enough not to indulge in those activities. Both political and scientific, just let me say a few. And in political instance, what happened is once it's one of the most famous recent cases of plagiarism. Shortly after the inauguration of President Donald Trump, what happened was the second lady of USA, Mrs. Melania Trump, she gave a speech which was so similar to Melania Michael Obama. So it was so similar to Michael Obama's speech. So this content, structure, everything was so similar. It became a social media sensation, and this caused a severe embarrassment to the entire Trump family. But this is all there in the website also. But actually, the second lady, Melania Trump, did not know about this at all because there were some high-profile officials who have made the speech. But whatever, she became a victim of social ridicule just because of this, because the speech was so similar to what was spoken by Michael Obama. And in the same manner, one more incident I would like to say. And this is a sort of political plagiarism. Another one is in case of Saddam Hussein. What happened was there was an incident because of which there was a downfall of his regime. There was a downfall of the regime. See, the United Nations, what they asked is, they asked them to give information regarding the Iraq's military operations and weapons program. So what happened? They gave they responded with a large document as a counter declaration. They gave a large document. In that, the large sections of the notes was just copied from the United Nations own reports itself, and word to word fashion without any citation, nothing, because there we cannot cite anything. So word for word fashion, it was just copied from United Nations report, and this has become a dangerous political plagiarism which led to the downfall of Saddam Hussein and his regime. So these are subject to social ridicule and embarrassment. Just I would like to share with these political issues. And then going on to the scientific incidents that have happened due to plagiarism. See, the first one, the plagiarism by a physicist and a vice chancellor called named Professor B.S. Rajput. This is also there in the website available. And that was a controversy called as Rajput controversy. He had published a physics research paper in journal Europhysics Letters. And this was found to be entirely copied from a paper that was published in Physics Review about 10 years back by a person, Dr. Renata, in Stanford University. And he's a vice chancellor in Uttarakhand, actually. But this both seem to be the same. So what happened? Dr. Renata, she had written a letter to then President of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, to probe into this issue. And finally, when the inquiry, everything had gone, and it seemed to be a similar paper, and the vice chancellor had to resign from his position due to the charges of plagiarism. So such was the punishment that was levied, such a great punishment he had due to this. And then there was a chemistry professor also from Sri Venkateshwara University who was accused of plagiarizing more than 70 articles. And between the time 2004 to 2007, and even first initially they found 2-3 articles, and finally they started inquiring each and every and scrutinizing each and every article which was found to be the scientific articles found to be taken from somewhere or the other, and he was banned and debarred due to this act of academic dishonesty. And in the same manner, there was a biotechnologist and a group in North, and they have done their work and published in the Journal of Biotechnology Advances. And all these are published in high impact factor journals. And finally, this was actually done by a different group, and immediately this was retracted due to plagiarism. They will remove that, and it is the journal was that particular article was retracted from the journal. And the accusation in the field of nanotechnology on cancer drug delivery, again there was an accusation. There were 5 research papers published in the journal like Acta Biomaterialica, and all these were retracted, and because of data manipulation and then self-plagiarism and the fault results. That is the paper which they have published. This is mainly due to self-plagiarism. That is what they have published were completely repeated in all the 5 papers. So that was initially I told that it is recycling fraud. It is also called as. So these are the instances where such incidents have happened, and hence we need to be very careful when we prepare a paper, and to avoid, and we can just use all the tools and correct ourselves. These are the references from where I have collected the data about data. And now the next one is that I would like to talk about the copyright. So far, I hope you've understood what is plagiarism. And now let me talk about copyright and what about copyright. And even the points of discussion under copyright, what I would like to talk is definition, type of work covered, penalty levied, and the tips to avoid copyright, basic criteria for copyright protection, duration, and licensing and its types, incident, and transparency of rules and follow-up. These are the things which I would like to discuss under the topic of copyright. Now, copyright by definition, it's a legal term. It refers to the legal right of the owner of intellectual property. It's a legal right of the owner of intellectual property. Here I've written the rights the creators have on their works. And it means that the original creator of products, they can give authorization to anyone, and only those people have the exclusive right to reproduce the work. So only to them who the original creator gives the authorization, they can only reproduce the work. Thus, it protects this copyright. It protects our work and stops others from using our work. And we get the copyright protection automatically. We don't have to apply or we don't have to pay. We get it automatically, just a paper, and we need to sign, and we'll get it. That in further slides I have, it is there. And any original content that is published on the web is to be protected by copyright. Any original content has to. So this copyright law, it's a form of IP law. It helps to protect the value of an author, academician, researcher's work by giving the originator of the work the ability to protect it from usage by others. So that much of importance it gives to the creator, because he is the one who has done the creation. So that's how the law is protecting the creator of the work. Now, again here, what are the various types of work that are covered by copyright? Now, initially there is artistic work, books, computer programs, engineering drawings, and then some films, music, literary, of course. And for us, in our field, scientific work, it's definitely being protected by the copyright law. Now, what is the penalty that is levied for doing this copyright reserve? See, infringement is treated as civil offense and sometimes criminal offense. What do you mean by infringement? Is that it is breaking the law or violating the law. So by violating, you try to do theft, piracy. These words are used here. It's just like piracy. And so that is, of course, when you do that, it is a civil offense and a criminal offense, definitely. And then depending on the severity of the offense which you do, your fine or imprisonment is levied upon you. So it depends on that, how much of severity we do it. And there are 5 tips to avoid copyright infringement online. Don't copy, share, or alter without permission. We need to ask permission to the creator, and then review all the licensing agreements. And you have the intellectual property policy. Always think, whatever work you see, always think that that work is definitely copyrighted. So we should be careful. And then avoid verbatim plagiarism. Verbatim plagiarism means it's just copy and paste. For example, a code. We cannot manipulate a code. If you are using a code which is created by somebody, you have to copy the code and paste it, but it should be done within the quotation marks. And it should include in-text citation. In-text citation, I've given an example also here. In the body of the text, you can give a citation. So all these have to be included to avoid verbatim plagiarism, and because that accounts to a copyright issue. So these are the 5 basic tips that if we can follow, we can avoid the infringement or violation of copyright law online. These are the 3 basic needs to protect work by copyright, and the basic requirements a work must meet. How should our work be in order to meet and be protected by a copyright law? That's what is given here. That is original. It should be original. That is, it should demonstrate at least a very small amount of creativity to meet the originality. I mean, it should be independently created. It should demonstrate even at least a very small amount of creativity. And only then it will meet out the originality. That's original, being original. And next is a work of authorship. Now, just in the previous slides, I have told you what all things we can do. The forms excuse me. Here, these are the types of work. And this a work of authorship, it should fall under one of the categories like that, and it must be a product of creative expression, like types of work and all that has been shown. It should be one among that. And the next is fixed. Fixed is it should be eligible, stable, and a fixed requirement, and it should be able to perceive, reproduce, and communicate. It should remain in the domain for a stipulated period of time. So the originality should be to that extent. So the requirement of work also need to be to that extent. So at least these 3, it should abide in order to protect, in order to get a copyright. Then other forms of work it's also called as anonymous work. That is, anonymous work is that if somebody else speaks or writes in an unidentifiable way. Sometimes the authors, they don't want to disclose themselves. They won't say their names at all. So that becomes an anonymous work or unidentifiable work. And pseudomonas work is that if sometimes an author, he projects himself under a fictitious name or a false name. He doesn't say his name, he gives another name, but the author is identified. Oh, the other name is denoting this particular person. If we know that, so the persons who do such work, they come under this pseudonymous work. Anonymous is don't know anybody who writes at all. So these are the other forms of work also along with our original work. Then duration of copyright protection. Then what is the duration that the law has given for protecting the copyrights? That is length of once an article or a paper is written, the length of the author's life plus 70 years. If I'm going to live for 60 years, it's plus 70 years. It is under the copyright protection. In case of a joint work, the length of the life of the last surviving joint creator plus 70 years. So that many years it stands. Then in case of anonymous and pseudonymous work, just now I explained to you what is anonymous and pseudonymous. In that case, 95 years from the year of first publication, it belongs only to them, though the person is identifiable or unidentifiable. Then when the term of copyright protection expires, this work enters into the public domain. So finally, it enters into the domain. Now, about the copyright license. The permission is given by the copyright holder for his content, definitely for his content, the permission is given. And then the creator also can decide to allow others to use his work. It's the decision of the creator. He can decide whom to give the permission. So how to apply is that there is a site given here. It can be either submitted to the office directly, or it can also be filed through a website, which is denoting, I've given here the website. So you can just file it online. So these are the various ways of applying for a copyright license. And what are the different types of copyright licenses? The most important are there are two types. One is voluntary license and another one is compulsory license. Voluntary is that the owner is granting voluntarily out of his own interest and writing and signing by him. So that's a voluntary one. Compulsory is it's granted by the registrar of copyright. That is, this registrar, he has the right to give without the permission of the owner to make this, or this is just to make all the copyrighted work available to the public domain, public access. It should be accessible. So not everything can be hidden. It should go to the public. The ideas should reach everyone. So there is this type of license which makes available that makes the copyright work available to the public domain. Then there is an incident again due to copyright. That is, there was a master's degree student, and he had found when he was just in a library, he found a thesis in a library, and he tried to share it with his colleagues through the website script. And this became a very big issue, and the author started to claim that this should not have been done. And whatever the steps taken by the student, unfortunately, he was sued under copyright law and he was imprisoned for 8 years. This happened in 2014. So anything should be done only with the consent of the creator or the publisher. Now, transparency in copyright rules. Of course, now there are some websites like creation of websites like creation of International Association of Scientific, Technical and Medical Publishers. They have made a site. How can I share a site? This is just to advise on sharing within the existing guidelines. How to share the publications within the existing guidelines. All the details are given in that. And also the publisher, Springer Nature, he is given an article and he is given it under the site Shared Edge site. This site is exclusively in read-only versions, and all the articles are in read-only version without a paywall, and the budding academicians and researchers can use it very well. And the follow-up in general here in many of the colleges we have confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements that brings forth a mutual understanding between the guide as well as the student for publishing articles or research articles or review everything on a common platform. So this understanding is built only due to this agreement. And then next is the research articles. When we send for publication, we send a copyright form. Of course, everybody knows we have to send a form and giving rights to the publisher. So this is in general done everywhere to avoid all these copyright issues. And I have just made some in our institution, the copyright, the contributor agreements, just a copy I have taken, and we need to write everything, all the details of the contributor, affiliating university, the address, everything should be given. There's a format, and with the signature, it has to be sent to the publisher. And even in our journal, Indian Journal of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, which is exclusively done by PhD College of Pharmacy, we have a manuscript submission form and a copyright transfer form, which is followed with all the necessary details, and to avoid all these unnecessary discrepancies. And you can see that all the authors have signed, and the rules are given that the manuscript is not submitted or being considered by another journal in part of full publication. These are the wordings written. The authors listed above are involved in carrying out research work presented in the manuscript. No part of the manuscript contains plagiarized portion from any other published material. So with all these promises, we do the signing and send the declaration. So this is like an acknowledgement. And these are the references for the copyright section. And just that I would like to show, tell you just the difference between these two is, if you talk about copyright now, because I've dealt with both plagiarism as well as copyright. If we talk about copyright, that is unlawful, unauthorized use of creative work that violates exclusive rights of copyright owner. They're violating the rules. The copyright owner is somebody, and you are without his knowledge, you are unlawfully, unauthorizingly, you're taking up the creative work of his. That's actually what is copyright. And plagiarism is you're presenting somebody else's thoughts without giving any attribution to that particular person. You're using his thoughts. You're not giving the credit or attribution to the actual one. So if you take what type of misdeed this is, the plagiarism is ethically wrong, but copyright discrepancy is a civil misdeed actually. So I thank you all for patiently listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Uma ma'am, for that valuable session. Now the session has been open for the queries to the delegates. Delegates, you can share your queries in the chat box. Delegates, if anyone of you is having any questions related to Uma ma'am's session, you can ask. Please share your questions in the chat box. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Uma ma'am, once again. And let us start the next session with the next session handled by Dr. G. Shyamala madam. Dr. G. Shyamala madam is working as Associate Professor in the Department of Pharmacognosy, PhD College of Pharmacy. She had completed her graduation from Tamil Nadu Dr. MGR Medical University and post-graduation in Pharmacognosy from JSS College of Pharmacy, Ooty. She has 2 Best Paper Awards in scientific presentations secured from national and international herbal conferences. She has 15 publications and has guided 17 BPharm projects and awarded PhD in the year 2015 from Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Hyderabad. Dr. G. Shyamala has 12 years experience in teaching and has received the Best Teacher Award from PhD institutions during the year 2015. So let us greet Dr. G. Shyamala Madam, who will be continuing the session with data integrity, plagiarism, and copyrights.
Very good evening to all. Thank you, Ms. Gopika, for giving a nice introduction. I thank our principal, Dr. M. Ramanathan, for providing us this opportunity to talk about, to deliver a lecture on data integrity. And my title, today I'm going to tell you about the data integrity and as well as conflict of interest. There are two different titles. So first, let me start with the data integrity. First of all, so I want to tell you what is meant by data. Data, when our wisdom or when our decisions without data, it is no valid. Recently, for the past 2 years, the entire world is affected by COVID-19, isn't it? So that many people claim that I have the remedy for COVID-19, I have the remedy for COVID-19. It was claimed by many traditional healers and many of the people claim. But those who are having data, valid data, they were able to success, not for the treatment, even for the prevention. They were able to success in the field, and still the researchers were in the search of data and search of giving evidences. So these evidences only possible through the valid data, when we have the valid data in our hand. So we first, let me start this. So I have what are the different contents I'm going to discuss. Let me give about the titles of our definitions for data and as well as definition for data integrity. And that's a common terminology. It is by regulatory terminology, how the data integrity should be. So it is said to be ALCOA with the name of ALCOA. So we'll see the details below. And after that, what are the regulatory perspectives? That is, what are the statements given by the USFDA and certain additional definitions it is given by USFDA, and what are the different solutions? How can we violate this? I mean, many people are violating the data integrity. So how can we get solutions for this one? So everything we can see here. And then first about the data. So data, it is nothing but a raw fact, and which describes the character, our wisdom, our knowledge, our hypothesis are converted into a work. So this work must be evidenced. So this evidence, generally it is called as a raw data. It is called as a raw data. So this raw data, it may be a laboratory worksheets, or it may be a records, or it may be photographs while performing the chromatographic analysis, or photographs while performing the animal studies, everything, and results of original observations, mainly in the animal studies. No, when the animal movement and when we go for the CNS studies, we have to observe the animals and we have to record the data. So these are all the results of original observations and recorded data from automated instruments. When we look at the UV, FTIR, HPLC and HPTLC, where we'll be getting the automated automated record and automated data. So these data, all these things is considered as the raw data, so which describes the character. So how we integrate the data and how to do the data integrity, So all data are, it should be complete data. It should start from our hypothesis and it should give the desired effect. So without that, it is not complete desired effect. So whatever we are aiming, suppose we are aiming for the qualitative analysis, it should do the data. And if we are aiming for the quantitative analysis, it should have been completed from A to Z. And it should be consistent. And this data, even if we do the same work several times, 2 or 3 or 4 times, however times, it should be consistent and it should be accurate. Our measurement should be accurate. We cannot give approximate. When we go with the analysis department, they always say the R value. So where it lies, this R value. So everything, these are all the major concerns of data integrity. So data integrity, it should be followed up throughout the life cycle of this entire research studies. It should be complete and it should be consistent as well as it should be accurate. And it is being described by the standard ALCOA. So what is that ALCOA? It is a universal terminology. It is an approved terminology by the USFDA. So it is ALCOA. It is nothing but the data must be attributable data and it must be legible and it must be contemporaneous and it must be original and it must be accurate. So we'll see one by one what is that attributable data. And this data provides information about the who performed the action. And suppose someone might, some of the students might have done, or some of the researchers will be doing that. That definitely we have to mention that in the data sheet, who performed the action and when he did, and he or she, when they did this activity. So that time is definitely, it is important when they did 2 years back or 2 months back or 1 month back or 2 weeks back, it must be denoted there. And this data, every day data must be signed and with the date. Every day data must be signed with the date. So these are all the informations required under the category of, or it comes under the category of attributable data. If there is any missing of this one, if the person who has done and when they have done without signature and date, it is not valid data. So this is about the attributable data. And when we look into the legible data, so some of you might be scribbling with the data, but here I have given that research report. So this research report, it is it is legible. Anyone can see this. Anyone can see these letters. So it should be readable and legible, first one. And it should be a permanent, just like that we cannot erase this, and it's not like using pencils. We are not supposed to use to record the data in pencil. It should be a permanent one. Anyone should not be erased. And it is not absolute document. No absolute document. Someone will be striking off that. Someone might have been strike and they might have recorrected that one. And these documents are called as absolute documents. These absolute documents should not be there. And if there are any corrections are made, so these corrections might have been signed with the signature and date. If there is any corrections, these corrections must have been assigned with the date and signature. And then we have to endure and proven this storage media. Suppose if you just note down in simple papers, it will be go off. So we always insist our students to write our reports only in the notebooks, so that it is more legible and it is a storage media. It is one of the method to properly store. And then contemporaneous. It is an important one. The data record as and when occurred. So simple example I can say, when we started performing alkaloidal analysis, suppose in a toxicology, then accidental consumption of alkaloids by a patient, and we are getting that whatever the patient consumed as alkaloids, we are getting that and we are performing the test for alkaloids. So after completing this test, suppose if we go with the TLC, thin layer chromatography, so these alkaloids are, after spraying with the drag and drops, it is showing that the reaction. So we are confirming that these alkaloids are present in the sample. But after few hours, within half an hour or 1 hour, if you see the TLC plate, it is completely blind. We won't get that orange color at all. So it will get disappeared. So it will get disappeared. It is a fact that this alkaloids with the drag and drops, it won't persist for longer time. So immediately we'll be performing the photo documentation. So that is what when that is called contemporaneous. So whenever we do the work and whenever we note down your record, we note down your data, immediately we have to, whenever we do the process, immediately we have to note it down. So that is important, more validity. And then for that we have certain follow-ups and we have standard operating procedures. So these for every instrument must be having a standard operating procedures. Even for every process, there will be standard operating procedures and we have to follow up the standard operating procedures. So this is about the contemporaneous. And then when we look into the whether it is an original or true copy. So the data, whatever is given here, the data given here, it is unaltered state. It is there as such we have taken in unaltered state. It is a run of a chromatograph. It is without alteration. It is, we have not done any of the alteration. It is there, so we can determine the RF values, all those things. And I can say that there are 8 samples have been placed in this plate. So this is the data for 8 samples. So if there is, how to identify the missing data, it is a false copy, how can identify? If there is any, the distance between the tracks, if there is anything is not a continuous one, if there is anything is hidden, it is visible. So you should be able to identify the duplicate data also. So this is the original true data. And if there is any missing lines, we can very easily say it has been duplicated data like that. So raw data with solid documentation. So if this raw data, just like that, if I save this chromatogram, it doesn't give the meaning. It should give the justification. So what is this data? What is these samples? What are the 8 samples? So every samples has to be denoted with that. It has to be justified, which are the standards and which are the samples, and every data must have been justified. Then only it will become original or true copy. And then is accurate data. It is very important that data should reflect the actual measurement. Data should reflect the actual measurement. I want to measure only the qualitative data, or if I'm measuring the quantitative data, doesn't mean if I need a quantitative data, but I'm measuring only the qualitative analysis, just a fingerprint analysis, or it won't affect. It will not be accurate. So whatever that accurate, suppose if you want to do the animal studies with the samples of 6 groups, we're supposed to do with the 6 groups. If we go with the 2 groups, and we cannot assume that in 2 groups, suppose we are analyzing only for 1 or 2 1 group, and we cannot report it for 2 groups. So that's what accuracy about the data. And also we have to measure the actual measurement. When we measure the weight of your animal, we should definitely give that actual measurement. It should not be, there should not be any editing. One animal may be weighing, one mice may be weighing 30 gram, another mice may be weighing 20 gram. We should give the actual measurement. So there should not be any editing. So these are all the very important factors, ALCOA. So this is about the data integrity, and still we have certain other additional informations. It is given by the USFDA, that is data integrity. They have given, mainly they have this ALCOA mainly prescribed it's for manufacturing, processing, packing, or holding of the drugs. So this is by USFDA. And then what is there are certain other terminologies also in this data. Metadata, audit trails, and static and dynamic records. We will see one by one what is that. Then metadata. So this metadata should provide the contextual information about the data, contextual information about the data. So what is that contextual information? I'm just denoting number 5 in the data. So it is a meaningless. Number 5 is a meaningless without the metadata. So simply I can say this metadata is nothing but data about a data. Metadata is nothing but data about a data. That is, I'm giving, instead of denoting as a 5, I'm giving 5 mg. Now it is meaningful. So that is what metadata. We are giving data about a data. Okay. So apart from this, metadata should contain the user ID. Some of the instruments nowadays, it is along with the user ID, who is using that user ID, and date and time stamp. It has been given when we do the instrumental analysis. Even we supposed to do the instrument ID, even when we do the UV and it is UV analysis, we can say it as a CMAS2. And when we do the HPLC analysis, CMAS2 or waters or HPTLC analysis, we can say it is a CAMAG with the Linamate applicator. All these instrument ID, it should be given. So that is said to be a metadata. And then this metadata provides a relationship between, and this metadata provide a relationship. It should be secured and it should be in the traceable manner. In an instruments, continuously when we are performing the analysis, it should be in the secured and as well as the traceable manner. So that's why always when you need proper user ID and date and time stamp, it is important information. And then audit trails. So what is that audit trails? We need a secure computer generated timestamp electronic record. And we can even do the certain reconstruction, not from the entire data. Certain parameters we can integrate. Suppose if you want to do only the qualitative parameters or screening, we can integrate. We can create it as a screening, and we can create as a quantitative experiment. Or if we need any derivatization technique, we can include in the HPTLC. So like that, creation, modification, or deletion of an electronic record. So that is what said to be reconstruction. So we can, I don't want that derivatization technique, so I can hide that. I want to create the method, or I want to create an analysis, that I can do. So these audit trails for high performance liquid chromatography or high pressure liquid chromatography. So username and date and time of the run, the integration parameters and details of your reprocessing any, or including change with the change can be denoted with the justification. So the change has to be denoted with the justification. So these audit trails has been defined by the WHO guidelines as well as USFDA guidelines. And then there are some more definitions. What is static data and dynamic, the difference between the static data and dynamic data. Static data, it is nothing but a fixed data document. It is a fixed data document such as a paper record or an electronic image. It's a fixed data document, paper record or an electronic image. So whatever given here, it is a chromatogram data. So it is a fixed data. It has been produced from the HPTLC analysis, and this is a chromatogram run for the extract. So this gives the different samples with the different RF values. So this is called a static data. So this data, and then dynamic data. So dynamic data, it is another one. It is a record format that allows interaction between the user and record content. I can do a slight modifications in these reports. So what is that? I have adjusted these baselines. Here you can very well see that. It is an example. This is a chromatogram for the gallic acid. So I have adjusted the baseline. So this baseline HPTL's instrument, baseline correction. So baseline correction in the chromatogram, which is called as a dynamic data. So these dynamic data, this is also acceptable in up to certain limit, so that I can change that if there is any impurities in the gallic acid, so that can be hide during the analysis, quantitative analysis. If there is any other spots has been appeared here and there, or at the point of application, that can be hidden, that is permittable, but it is being well denoted in the chromatogram. So you should be able to identify the difference between the static data and the dynamic data. Static data, the baselines are as such in the other, these are all in its own places. But in dynamic data, this baseline adjusted after adjustmenting this baselines, this has been appeared, so that hiding certain impurities in the gallic acid. So this is denoted, but for the quantitative analysis, it is not wrong. We can do that for the quantitative analysis of this gallic acid estimation. Okay. So what are the solutions? So the solutions, it is stated if there is any violations of data integrity, or if there is any deviations. First, before solutions, I'll just tell who it is applicable. So this data integrity, whoever it is applicable. So it is applicable to the manufacturer of finished drug products. So those who are for commercial distribution and for clinical trials, and those who are doing bioequivalent studies, are companies with the clinical trials, are laboratories that develop the methods, are formulations intended to support new drug, or manufacture of API, or contract research organizations, or contract manufacturer organizations, or contract testing laboratories. For all of them, this data integrity is applicable, and entire quality systems insist to conduct the data integrity audit with the scope of whether the institution or laboratory or the manufacturing unit or clinical research unit followed this good manufacturing practices, or good clinical practices, or good laboratory practices, or good pharmacovigilance practices, or good distribution practices, or good tissue practices. So all those things, whether these are being followed up or not, it has to be audited then and then. This is one of the major major objective of USFDA. Major objective is data integrity audit. It is being a third objective, whether they perform the data integrity audit. So this is this how we can maintain the quality, and we can maintain the quality, safety, and efficacy in patients. So this is about the data integrity. So any questions in data integrity? Why is it here? Any questions? So any questions regarding data integrity? Now next I will move on to the conflict of interest. Now let me define about the what is interest. When we before going to that, I'll just tell when we started initially, when we started our post-graduation or after completing the post-graduation, we'll be blinking that why we supposed to give the conflict of interest statement to the journals. We'll be wondering why all the authors should make a signature, and why they are getting approval. So after knowing that after a long time, only we were able to identify why it is important just making signature of all the authors who are contributing to the, or whose name is there in the journal, and who is contributing, and it is important. Why it is important after knowing this, after later on when we progress in our education or in the field, then only we came to know what is that conflict of interest. And now we will see about certain aspects. So what is that interest? First, interest. An interest may be defined as a commitment or goal or value held by an individual or an institution. So an individual may have an interest to complete a research project or to gain the status through promotion or recognition and protecting the environment. But similarly, the institution may have a goal to get a research product and this to get a product from out of this research and commercializing this product. So these commercializing product, the institution may have an agreement with an organization or with a industry, and they may get the financial gains. So they may get the financial gains. So someone may be, so this is about the interest. So where this conflict of interest arises. So this a conflict of interest is nothing but it exists when two or more contradictory interests relate to an activity by an individual or an institution. More contradictory interests. So it is this conflict of interest which lies in the situation, not in any behavior or lack of behavior of the individual. Doesn't say the statement that lack of behavior of the individual, but it means that a conflict of interest is not intrinsically a bad thing. They can, if they have a real right, they can raise the question. Every individual or institution or industry, they also have the right to raise the conflict of interest. So what is that? The definitions. The researcher's decision making may be compromised because of certain financial interest is called a conflict of interest. Certain researchers, so suppose all this conflict of interest is very high in the pharma field, especially in biomedical as well as in the pharmaceutical sciences field. Why means it gives the large financial gains, development of any formulation or development of new medication. It gains you many financial interests. So the arise of conflict of interest is higher in case of pharma industries as well as the biomedical industries. And when we look into that conflict between financial gain and meticulous completion and reporting of a research study. A research study is being done by a research investigator, but similar study, it is being progressed with the physician. That physician who has been contributing to that particular research. So there may be conflict between the investigator and there may be conflict between the physician. The physician may expect some more excessive financial gains, or investigator not only financial gains. Out of the financial gains, there are other conflicts of interest also, non-financial conflict of interest that we will see later. And then what are the consequences? That's what the same thing I'm saying about that. When an individual conflict of interest exists, then independent of the behavior of the investigator, that is, we should not assess if there is an individual gives about the conflict of interest about a particular research work, we should not assess the behavior or character of the investigator. We should definitely assess those knowledgeable, whether they are knowledgeable and whether they contributed to the study, about the study. It has to be identified thoroughly. We have to know about the study, must take the conflict of interest into account when judging the validity of the study. So it is an important one. And beyond that, in clinical research, there are other subjects that is said to be subjects, the other persons who are involved in the clinical research. Subjects means here, the persons who is involved in the clinical trials, and we are giving there's some medicament and we are analyzing their blood samples and urine samples, they also should be compromised. So if not, there are chances for them to raise about that. So that is about the financial. We have to compromise through the financial support, and they have to be explained clearly about this. And then this conflict of interest, whom or it is extended. It is extended to all the stakeholders and it is extended to the, especially in clinical research, to the principal investigator and to the ethics committee and to the institution. So all are, if this conflict of interest, anyone can raise this conflict of interest with the firm. And then industry sponsored research. So in case of sponsored research, who are all can claim if immediate family member of the principal investigator or of institutional heads, immediate family member of the principal investigator or of institutional heads. And then because the sponsored research only through the institution. So that's right. Under Human Research Protection Program, HRPP, our board are a part of the board of directors and our medical advisors for that particular research, or ethics committee members and our ethics committee members, or who have financial interest. I mean, they might have done certain financial contributions and they can, and who hold major share in the sponsor company and should be probed and should be declared before the acceptance of the research protocol, and who has the sponsor a major share in the sponsor company. Suppose a company's product has been released and which achieves the higher market, they all can claim about this, their conflict of interest. So how to manage this conflict of interest? So managing financial and non-financial conflict of interest are very important, and it can we can go with this 3 different points are there to manage this conflict of interest. First one is the regulation of the individual. Another one is design and regulation of the research process and critical assessment of the research product. So when we look into the regulation of the individual, the strategies of the research work must be given clearly to the individual researcher, and we have to disclose the financial interest if there is any financial gains, and there is a need of disclosure, and prohibition from research on a product in which one has an equity interest. The research, when they convert, if they ask for only the research work, and we have to go with that, and if we have to prohibit if their excessive involvement in the to convert into the product, because the product has been developed by the industry, maybe developed by the industry or institution. This is the approach often taken by the institutions and regulatory bodies, and which is also recommended by the expert panels. That is that is restricted to the research activity. And then design and regulation of the research processes. So the research processes must have been clearly designed and regulated. The methods of investigation and analysis of a particular research proposal or presentation of the research to optimize these processes to get the best possible research product. So all these things must be clearly stated, and we have to educate the people or the institution or the company has to educate the investigators regarding the elements of research design that can help limit or prevent the influence of bias, or informed or non-conflicted IRB, that is Institutional Research Board, review of research proposals, and rigorous overview by the research supervisors and public registration of trials. So all those things are very important. That means design and regulation through the Institutional Review Board. It plays a major role to avoid this conflict of interest. And then critical outcomes assessment. In addition to the individual and the research processes, it is a main focus on close, skilled, and non-conflicted review of the outcome or product produced by the investigator and the research itself. It is this final piece is exemplified by the journal editorial process. So all these critical outcome assessment, it is mainly for the non-financial conflict of interest. So if it is a financial conflict of interest, it can be overcome by the proper design and proper protocol of the research proposal. If it is a non-conflicted interest, it is independent of the finance. It has to be thoroughly peer reviewed, and who has contributed what. So the peer review is the other great protection against the conflicts of interest. So this is a piece in the research work. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Shyamala ma'am, for this valuable session. Now the session has been open for the queries. Delegates, please share your queries in the chat box if you have any. Okay, that's all I think. Shyamala ma'am, once again, thank you for your valuable session.
Thank you.
So let us wind up today's program with this. Once again, I remind you, please join with your name which has been registered for the program at first with for tomorrow's session. So let us rejoin tomorrow at sharp 9:30 a.m. itself. The link will be provided. Okay, thank you, delegates, and thank you, speakers.